Oh, boy, here comes the pain. We're 26 days away from NFL free agency get underway, and guess what? Who's the number one guy on the list? George Pickens, Dallas Cowboy receiver. You guys know how I feel about this. Makes sense because he came off the couch from Pittsburgh for a bag of chips and just ran up to over 1,400 yards and 9 TDs in Dallas. Jerry, just flip the switch and pay the man, roughly saying about what, $28 million? Yeah, pay him. But take a look at it when it comes to those top 10 free agents heading into 2026, just a couple days away. Pickens number one. Trey Hendrickson, we talked about him a lot with the Bengals last year, the leading sack leader the past couple years. Daniel Jones on that list, Jalen Phillips, and others looking for a new home. Emory Hunt is not looking for a new home, but he's hanging with us this morning, locked in the AM per usual in the Morning Buzz. He's going to give us his top 5 reasons why not to make a mistake during free agency. And number 5, don't tag Pickens. And I'm with you on this one.
Yeah, you got to pay the man. Listen, I'm a big George Pickens guy. He was my number 1 receiver coming out of his draft class. And I can't say why I like George Pickens, but I'll explain it this way. You need at least 3 George Pickens on your football team. Now, you can't have them all on one side of the ball, and you can't have more than 3 because it'll be a mutiny. We've seen that play out before, but you need dudes like him to go out there and do some stuff that he does outside of the X's and O's. But within the X's and O's, you get a guy like George Pickens out there. He's an elite playmaker, and quiet as kept. He was clutch this year for the Cowboys. They would be crazy to let that guy walk out the building after you just built a phenomenal 1-2 combination with him and CeeDee Lamb. And then we saw the emergence of a Kevontae Turpin as a number 3 wide receiver, along with the tight ends and what they're able to do with Jalen Tolbert and all of the running backs that they have. But you got to pay Pickens. Don't make the mistake of letting him hit the open market.
Now, the critics might say that they wouldn't pay him because he was a head case the past couple of years in Pittsburgh. Producer Tully. I didn't say that, though, but that's what the critics are saying out there. Would you shy away from paying him that AAV of 28 plus?
Here's the thing, and this is what I was alluding to, right? You need guys like that on your football team. That is winning football. Again, you could only have so many, but you can't also have them on the same side of the ball. Case in point, you had Earl Thomas and you had Marcus Peters, 2 phenomenal defensive backs. But on the same side of the ball, hey, they're playing great. And then somehow, somewhere in the 3rd quarter, 4th quarter, in a crucial situation, you see Marcus Peters throwing a referee flag in the stands. That is likely to happen. But if you have a big enough lead, that won't hurt you. That's the reason why people say, hey, I have some cause for pause about paying a guy like Pickens. But me, I like to roll the dice. Why grab the dice if you're not going to roll? Pay George Pickens, build up a big lead, and hopefully none of that happens in the 4th quarter when you need it.
All right, taking a look at this list real quick, Emory, I'm curious, where do you slot him? Is he over CD at maybe 34-1, or is he below maybe that bottom 5 right above A.J. Brown at maybe 32-6?
I say he's right below CD, over DK, and I put that because of the age. It's fascinating to look at that list, and when you think about coming off the year he came off of, where would you put him? I would say right there by CeeDee Lamb. So for me, that's where his market is, and I think because of how he plays in those big situations, those high leverage situations, that's why you pay him the money and don't tag him.
All right, that was number 4 or number 5. I want to get to number 4, and sadly it's almost the same thing with my Cowboys. Don't chase the Super Bowl and go broke.
One of my favorite pastimes is stiff-arming football myths, right? I wrote a book about this back in 2012 or 14, right, called Stiff-Arming Football Myths. You can find that, whatever, right? But one of them is that people love to talk about this Super Bowl residue, right? Where, oh, wow, this guy won a Super Bowl, we bring him in. We've seen this happen. No disrespect to names I'm about to mention. We saw this happen with Larry Brown, your Cowboys, him getting that big contract after catching 2 interceptions in the Super Bowl. We saw that with Dexter Jackson when he was with the Bucs, and we're going to see it this year because people are going to talk about it with, oh, wow, they have Nick Emmanwori. We got to go out and find our Nick Emmanwori. That's what you need to win the Super Bowl. Like, wait a minute. That's like when everybody saw Randy Moss balling and was like, hey, we got to get ourselves a Randy Moss, a 6'5" wide receiver. Like, bro, Randy Moss did a lot of great things, all of which his skill sets had nothing to do with him being 6'5". Him being 6'5" just made it look cooler. So people always miss the right ingredients for winning a Super Bowl. So building your team, not looking at what just won and then going and try to replicate that You have to build your own Super Bowl recipe.
Let me see that book again real quick. Can we find it on Amazon? Let me see that. There we go. Stiff arming football myths. There he goes.
Bro, I'm told y'all be sleeping on how great I am, man. CBS got themselves a gym.
Well, why don't you just send it to us? We don't get no copies or nothing, no advance copies.
Man, you
no
see
emails?
this economy? Y'all better, matter of fact, I'm gonna go raise the price just because you talk about sending you a free copy.
See, this is how you get the pins like Zach. See, that raises the buck. I'm just saying. All right, let's get to number 3. Let's get to number 3. Invested into that O-line.
One of my other favorite pastimes is hearing people at this juncture of the schedule talk about the NFL draft. And all they talk about is skill players. And then come postseason, they always talk about, especially when they have a favorite quarterback that they want to hype up, oh, he don't have an offensive line. No offensive line. The offensive line gets blamed for every problem in this country. Economy, groceries, blame the offensive line. That's what everybody does best than anything. So invest in the offensive line early. Free agency, a lot of good offensive linemen may not hit the free agent market, but if they do, go and pay those guys handsomely right now, right away, so we don't have to hear you cry about it come postseason. Because offensive line, point of attack play, if you want to take anything away from the Super Bowl, you have to have stability up front in the trenches, especially on offense.
Anybody you want to circle in free agency that might be a high price target in terms of that O-line this offseason?
Any O-line, any one of them. Here's the thing. You look at the Cleveland Browns situations right quick, right? All 5 of their starting offensive linemen are scheduled to hit free agency. Now, that could be the gift and the curse. You could say, well, their offensive line wasn't as good last year. Okay, but if you're going to see the reasons why, maybe some were injured, maybe some were coming off injury, I would say go out and pay a Tyler Linderbaum if Baltimore is crazy enough to let him go out the door. That's the one you want to get, because the closer you are to the ball, the better your football team will be. I always call it the battery. Center, nose tackle, Mike backer, free safety, quarterback, running back. You have to be strong right down the middle. Linderbaum hitting free agency would be a troubling sign for the Baltimore Ravens. You have to be strong. So that would be the one guy I would go and overpay because of what he brings to the table and how much that position means to the game of football. Like I said, when you're strong right down the middle.
I know the O-line means a lot to you, but I think your number 2 one here, paying the RBs, that means a little bit more.
You got to pay those guys, man. As football has been around since 1869. That means Harriet Tubman got to see what football looked like for at least 10 years, right? So it's always been about the run game. Running the football is key, no matter who it's been. You know what I'm saying? So if you go all the way back to now, Kenneth Walker, and I love that I'm able to say this now because I'm coming off of a Super Bowl MVP being a running back, so I have a little bit more credibility in saying this. Pay your running backs. Look at that elite list y'all got up there. Everybody on there is elite. Everybody on there can help you win games. So, and people will always talk about this mythical positional value. When we're out there in week 9 watching games, you think you care about positional value? You just want a guy that can play. And those guys right there can play. So if you're having the chance to pay a running back, that's an elite one at a good age, go and pay that guy. Don't worry about, first of all, it's not your money. Secondly, you want guys that can win, and those guys can help you win ball games. So pay elite talents that can help you win, because the cap is going to continue to go up, and people are acting as if it's their money. Pay running backs, man. Running backs matter completely.
I'm going to be honest, I didn't hear nothing you said. I was dying laughing on your answer at the top of that one, by the way. She did not see football. Just want to put it out there.
Football came around since 1869.
She had a job. She had a job, Emory. She was busy. She was busy. All right, number 1, stop playing those middle-class QBs that top-end money.
Listen, everybody can't be Sam Darnold. Yep. And Sam Darnold wasn't Sam Darnold until 5 times later, right? So don't go out and find somebody's backup and pay them elite money. We saw that with Matt Flynn. And when you think about Malik Willis, and I'm a big Malik Willis guy. He was my number 1 quarterback in his draft class. It's fascinating when they're talking about Malik Willis now, and you think about in his career, he started less games than Shedeur Sanders. So it's almost like people are just focusing on the now and not what they thought about him initially. He always was this type of guy. He probably should still be in Tennessee, but you don't go and find someone's backup to try to pay them elite money and think you're going to get a different result. Because again, you got to look at the ecosystem around why Sam Darnold became who we thought he could be when he was coming out of USC. So if you're going to look at a backup, if you're going to look at somebody, look at who has played well. I keep throwing out the name Zach Wilson. That was someone that left New York, did well in Denver when we saw him in the preseason, and then he did well in the preseason when we saw him down in Miami. That would be someone you can give a cautious contract to. But stop paying these guys like they're elite, have arrived already, when they're still having to prove themselves. That's where a lot of teams also get in trouble a lot in terms of free agency. So avoid that big mistake, because it could set your franchise back for at least 2 to 3 years.
Emory Hunt, the Arthur, the analyst, the historian. Didn't know he was going to get all that today on a Friday, as always. Appreciate it. Emory Hunt tapping in on everything in NFL. Don't forget the fellas always tapping in with the first pick. Ryan Wilson and the crew. Rain Cardigan to those that know. Check out that QR code to tap into the show.
So we've got some rules when it comes to the front office and what they should follow. Roughly $4 billion will be spent in free agency this offseason. History tells us, though, spending big doesn't always mean winning big. So how should teams approach free agency? Well, we got those rules. We got 10 of them now that every front office should follow, and we're going to welcome in our John Breech to dive through them all. And this is very important because a lot of money is going to be spent, but how should they spend it? We're going to start with rule number 1. Extend your superstars early. We've seen teams lose tens of millions by waiting a year too long. So why do front offices keep playing this game with their big names?
Yeah, I love rules, Jenny. This is rule number 1 that you just mentioned. This should be called the Jerry Jones rule, because he is the one who does not follow it. We have seen the Cowboys just throw money away. They are setting it on fire with guys like Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, because they waited too long to extend them, and then you end up paying out-of-market prices. They could have gotten a contract done with Dak Prescott way back in the day for under $50 million a year. They waited as long as possible, tagged him a couple times, ended up paying $60 million a year. And so the lesson there for teams going into this offseason is, if you have a player that is one of the best at his position, you absolutely want to get a deal done. We saw on this list, Jackson Smith and Jigba is there. Puka Nacua is someone. The Rams need to get extension done with him. Will Anderson and CJ Stroud. The Texans have 2 players to worry about. There are a lot of big names. Bijan Robinson is pretty much the Falcons' entire offense at this point. So any guy on that list, if you are a team and you want that guy to be around long-term, don't play around. Don't wait. Get the deal done now, because this is the lowest his price is going to be. The longer you wait, the more money you pay.
The longer the wait, the more money you pay. And then you think about the age of these guys. And, you know, in the world that we live in, 30 is not that old. But in the NFL, that's going to bring us to rule 2. You got to beware of the age 30 wall, especially for wide receivers. Production, we've seen, has dropped fast after 30. Is this just like the most dangerous contract mistake that teams just for whatever reason keep repeating?
Well, it really is. You look at the position, though. If you look at quarterback, it feels like 40 is the new 30. You can still be successful at age 40. You look at receiver, and 30 is 50. You just are ancient once you hit that age. And you kind of look around the NFL. I mean, you look at Tyreek Hill this year. The Dolphins gave him that huge extension when they made that trade a couple years ago. And once you hit that age, your production goes down and you're more injury prone. I mean, we saw Stephon Diggs when he signed with the Texans back when he was turning 30, tore his ACL, and had a bounce back year with the Patriots at age 32. But what we're looking at here, it is a huge drop in production. We're talking almost 25 yards per game for players once they hit age 30. So if you're a receiver, your production goes off a cliff. And so if you're a front office member, if you're a general manager, you absolutely have to take that into account, because this is not a 1-year thing. This is not a 5-year thing. This is just the history of the NFL. Unless you have 1 or 2 outliers who somehow get more productive at age 30, they do exist. But more often than not, if you have a receiver over age 30, their production is going to go way down.
That's so sad. 30 seems so young for us old folks over here. All right, we're going to go to number 3 now. Go quarterback bargain shopping. 1-year quarterback deals have started playoff games in 4 straight seasons. John, why do you like this one?
Well, this is going to be interesting to see if this becomes a hard and fast rule. Because of what we're seeing in the NFL right now. When you look at these huge contracts that are being handed out, I'm talking about any deal that's paying out more than $50 million a year. most of those guys have never been to a Super Bowl, let alone won a Super Bowl. I mean, Dak Prescott's the highest paid quarterback in the NFL, never made it to an NFC title game. Trevor Lawrence is up there. Tua's up there. You have all these quarterbacks making over $50 million a year, and they're not winning championships. So now you have teams saying, well, what if we go to kind of the tier 2 quarterbacks? We don't pay them $50 million a year, and that's kind of what we've been seeing. We got the Colts and Daniel Jones. We're off to a hot start before Jones' injury. Sam Darnold is obviously the big example here. He signed with the Vikings for $10 million, and even when he signed that huge extension with the Seahawks, Seattle was paying him under $35 million per year on that contract. So the Seahawks got a bargain, and they got a Lombardi trophy out of it. And we're looking at this list right here. Dak Prescott, Joe Burrow, Jordan Love, Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence, Tua Tagovailoa, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson. None of those guys have a Super Bowl. Those are the 10 highest paid quarterbacks. So I do think that taking the 1-year flyer, see if you can get something out of a quarterback for cheap, that seems like it might be the way to go because these big contracts are not paying off.
It's crazy when you think about it that way. All right, rule number 4, it's okay to pay running backs, just keep it short term. Our Pete Prisco, he thinks running backs are a dime a dozen. You can just plug and play anyone at any time. We've saw record spending 1 year, then the lowest since 2012 the next. What's the right balance there?
Yeah, you hit it, Jenny. This is absolutely the Pete Prisco rule because this has been his rule for life since day one, since he was born back in 1921 when the NFL came into creation. So here we have, look, you look at the last year's free agency class. It was huge. Saquon Barkley switching teams, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs. So you had all these guys, and they all had huge years in their first season with their new team. Now, you fast forward to 2025, all of those guys took a step back in their offense. And so kind of what that tells you is maybe we don't want to sign a running back long term. You give him a 1 or 2 year deal, something that you can get out of, because as Prisco says, you can find productive running backs. And after 1 or 2 years, you go after someone who you could probably get for less money. So, yeah, this is a way to save money. Don't be handing out those 5-year deals to running backs.
Okay, so don't hand out long-term deals to running backs. What are your thoughts on big paydays for tight ends? We're looking at rule number 5 now. You're saying avoid big tight end contracts in free agency. Why is tight end production so hard to buy?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. It feels like tight end is a position where teams they try to find someone who fits their system. They go out and pay big money, and it just does not pay off. We're looking at that guaranteed money list, and there haven't been a lot of home runs out there. I feel like a lot of teams, if they have a great tight end, they try to hold on to them. You look at George Kittle. He's been in San Francisco forever. Travis Kelce, been in Kansas City well beyond a decade. And so when you have a very good tight end, you don't want to let them go, which is why you rarely see these big paydays in free agency. And this rule is really going to get tested this offseason because we do have a lot of big tight ends about to hit free agency. Kyle Pitts could hit free agency, David Njoku, Isaiah Likely, Cade Otton. And Travis Kelce will be a free agent, but he'll either retire or go back to the Chiefs. But there will be a lot of tight ends available, so we'll see if any of them get big money and if any teams break this rule.
Some big names there. Rule number 6, protect your franchise quarterback. This seems like it's an easy rule to follow, but we've also seen what happens when teams ignore their O-line. Why is this one important?
Yeah, I think this one is self-explanatory. You don't want your quarterback getting sacked on every play. Your offense doesn't work if your quarterback's getting hit. So if there are good offensive linemen available, you have to go out and try and sign them. We're looking at a list. There are some solid guys available, starting with Packers left tackle Rasheed Walker. So any team that's in the market for offensive linemen, this is a signing you absolutely want to make because you want to improve your offensive linemen whenever possible and wherever possible.
It seems like 30 is the threshold that we're talking about as far as age goes. So rule number 7, don't pay old pass rushers. Sack numbers falling off sharply after the age of 30, John.
Yeah, this is another thing. Just like the wide receivers, it's so sad. You said it, Jenny. Why is 30 so old in the NFL? But we have a big name guy over the age of 30 who could be available in March. That's Trey Hendrickson. The Bengals might tag him, but if they don't, he will be available in free agency. And so there will be a risk in signing him because he had the injury history. He's dealing with multiple injuries last year. He's over the age of 30 when production historically goes down. So this is another thing where front offices have to exercise a lot of caution because you don't want to hand a big money deal to a pass rusher over the age of 30 because historically their production goes way down.
Rule number 8, buyer beware with cornerbacks. 10 big money corners last offseason combined for just 7 interceptions. Is that one of the most volatile positions in free agency?
Well, it really feels like cornerback is almost like left tackle, where teams, if they have a shutdown corner, they do not let them go. But other teams also realize they need to find their own shutdown corner, so they're willing to overpay at the cornerback position, because if they do hit a home run, your secondary is in good shape. If you have one great corner, you have 2 great corners, you automatically have one of the best secondaries in the NFL. So there will be some corners, some big names, Jalen Watson, Jamel Dean, who will be available, but is absolutely a risk to pay those guys top of the market prices.
Rule number 9, we are just rolling through these right now, position stacking. So you think about it, free agency, the draft, it can always be a guessing game. You never know really what you're going to get. So if you double dip, you triple dip into a position, it just makes sense that that strategy works well, right?
Yeah, it's like when I buy 5 lottery tickets instead of 1. I got a better chance of winning. Exactly. So you see teams, I think they're starting to embrace this even more, especially in the NFL draft. We saw the Falcons do it last year. They traded back up to get 2 pass rushers in the first round. We saw the Los Angeles Rams do it with their 2 defensive linemen a couple years ago. So teams say, let's set, especially at a position of need. If we have 2, if one of them doesn't work out, one does work out, that's great, because we still filled that need. If both of them work out, that's even better. And this absolutely applies to free agency. You're probably not going to get 2 top-of-the-line players at the same position. But when you start to get into that second wave of free agency and the contracts become more affordable, there is no reason not to sign 2 guys at the same position, especially if that's a big hole on your roster.
Just makes sense there. Rule number 10, we've made it all the way to rule 10. Don't expect spending to equal success. Sometimes the biggest spenders historically don't win the most games. What separates smart spending from headline spending?
Yeah, this is an interesting rule, because historically it had been true almost every season until 2025, when the Seahawks and Patriots were both top 5 spenders last offseason and made the Super Bowl. But that was totally, feels like an anomaly, against the grain. Usually if you're spending a lot of money, it's because you have a lot of holes on your roster. And if you're trying to fill those holes, you have to hit a home run every single time. And if you miss out, that hole's still there, so it makes it tough for your team to succeed. The Seahawks were a little different because they spent a lot of that money on a quarterback, so that ups your spending a lot. But the Patriots went out, they signed a bunch of players who just all happened to work out. That usually does not happen. So yeah, if you throw a lot of money during free agency, that means you made bad decisions earlier in the draft or in other spots. And so that's why you can't buy your way to happiness here in the NFL, Jenny. That's what it comes down to.
In other aspects of life, you might be able to, but not in the NFL. John Breech, thank you so much for joining us here on HQ. Okay, we just gave you 10 mistakes to avoid. Here is 5 more from our Emory Hunt. If I'm a GM or owner, I'm just watching this whole segment, and I'm just going to go through free agency with this information right here. Pay running backs, period. Number 2. Simple. Pete Prisco. This should be his show right now, his segment. All right, the NFL season, it really ramps up in March. Franchise tags, legal tampering period, start of free agency. April, of course, we have the NFL draft. We got rookie mini camps, OTAs. As we mentioned at the start of the show, the NFL season just does not end.